This is ShadowMeowth speaking. Welcome to Lorelines Between the Lines episode on Auracite. Before we begin our journey to unravel the mysteries of crystals, if you enjoy our content, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and allow the notification bell to toll. Not for the coming of the end, but for another chapter of this story. Auracite, a term that we have seen mentioned during the course of Final Fantasy XIV. However, it's not a concept from the long, and as years pass, Auracite became increasingly relevant, both in the front and the back lines. One might say that this particular crystal is the core of the tapestry of intrigue, conflict, and miracles. But to understand properly the nature of Auracite and its importance, we have to explore not just the concept of Auracite but of magic crystals that function similarly in other entries, connect them to what we have seen of it in the Final Fantasy XIV, and theorize about what role it might have in Endwalker, and perhaps beyond. Crystals have ever been the core of the Final Fantasy ever since its conception, but their role has ever been a changing motive. From the lodestones that hold the world together to energy sources and sacred artifacts, in most titles they're the direct manifestation or conduit of magic. But to understand Auracite, let us review what we know of it in Final Fantasy XIV. Auracite is a form of crystal, and crystals in 14 are physical concentrations of ether, the lifeblood of the star. However, from the very introduction of this term through the white Auracite Moonbrida gives us in our realm reborn as a tool of murder, one might infer that Auracite is not a natural crystal, but a crafted or synthetic one. You would not be entirely wrong. We have seen Auracite mentioned in many other instances. The great spell Ultima was contained within an Auracite piece in the Ultima weapon called the Heart of Sabik. The regrouped 7th Legion of Garlemald operating in Verlit used synthetic Auracite from Violence of Amvaro's weapon project. A combination of white Auracite and crystallized Allagan blood forms the spirit vessel that allows safe soul transfer between worlds. But undoubtedly the greatest example of it came with the Stormblood raid series of Return to Ivalice, and the continuation of the plotline in Shadowbringers with the conflict between the Budgeon Resistance and the 4th Legion. The reason is simple. The term Auracite is evolution, and comes straight from the works of Yasumi Matsuno. To understand its relevance, we first must travel to the world of Ivalice and learn of how crystals manifest there. The world of Ivalice features crystals in various ways. In Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, they are given a more prominent classical role as the threads that hold Ivalice together, for example. But in Ivalice, crystals are commonly found as a mineral of sort, magic stones that can be classified in 3 different types: magicite, nethicite, and auracite. Magicite is the common name for stones containing magical power, or, as it is commonly manifest in Ivalice, mist. There exist varieties: spellstones, being used for the preparation and working of magics, sky stones, giving flight to airships, and memstones, holding fast sounds heard and visions seen, that they might be experienced again. Though their color, shape, and size may differ, these have no bearing on the quality of the stone. Some of the smallest stones are the most powerful, and some of the largest contain only a small amount of mist and are as good as useless. It's a property of magicite that it loses its mists over time, and once spent, a stone's mist cannot be renewed. Magicite without mist is mere rock. The ability to manufacture magicite of some power has only recently been attained, and this after many long years of research. Nethicite is a variety of magicite with the unusual property of absorbing mist, thereby nullifying the effects of magic. Though there is some mentions of nethicite in ancient tomes, it had been lost, or perhaps consumed, with no mention or record appearing for several centuries. Sky pirates call it the magicite of legend. Methods of manufacturing nethicite have been developed in Arcadis in recent times, and several test samples are in active use. Nethicite is revealed to be of divine origin, for it was created by the gods of Ivalice, the undying Ocuria, and the three fragments of the affected nethicite depicted in Final Fantasy XII, the Dawn Shard, the Midless Shard, and the Dusk Shard, were all cut from the source, the sun crest at the top of the Ridorana lighthouse. Though the term Auracite was first introduced in Final Fantasy Tactics, we learned that its origin is, like nethicite, Occurian, created from two great crystals named Auraliths. In Final Fantasy XII Revenant Wings, it is revealed that Auracite can create espers by using the Summer's anima, the part of the soul that allows people to experience emotion, as fuel. However, the most famous Auracites in the Ivalice Alliance series are the 13 Zodiac Stones, the core of the Church of Glabados' doctrine, and both a gateway for the Lucavi into the mortal realm and artifacts of miracle, best exemplified when the Scorpio Auracite resurrected Maracaltina. One might say then that Auracite is a magicite related to the soul and the spirit realm. It can bring back a soul from death, and it can act as a portal for the Lucavi to possess a mortal host through a pact. While not bearing the name Auracite, there have been previous Final Fantasy titles that feature crystals similar to its concept. In Final Fantasy VI, magicite is a crystallized form of the sea's espers, which calls to mind how Auracite acts as both shaper and gateway of these arcane entities. In Final Fantasy VII, materia, crystallized Mako, the lifeblood of the planet, is an of the classic crystals, which allow the wielder to cast magic, summon espers, and learn new commands. Core elements in the plot are the exceptionally powerful white materia, containing Holy, the ultimate white magic, and the black materia, containing Meteor, the ultimate black magic. There is a third ancient materia, the proto-materia, which holds the power to control and balance the Omega weapon and Chaos, the last resort of the life stream against planet-threatening danger. Much like in Final Fantasy VII, the crystalline spheres of Final Fantasy X are meant to evoke crystals, but their purpose is rather similar to that of magicite in the world of Ivalice. They hold magic energy provided by the fireflies inside and can be used as keys, memory recording, memory transfer, or image recording and projection. Crystal, the physical manifestation of chaos, the source of life, magic, and entropy, adopts many forms in the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy, but it is probably the representation most closely aligned with Auracite as it is described in the Ivalice Alliance series. The best example are Idoliths, the crystal shard that blossoms inside a human branded soul, allowing them to naturally employ magic and acting as a gateway between the physical realm and the ancient realm, for an Eidolon to choose them as their master and come to their aid when they are in need. In Final Fantasy XIII too, the line Time and Memory frozen in crystal is used for completed timelines in the Historia cracks, and both fragments, crystallized memories, and artifacts, anachronic items that act as keys for their respective time gates, take the appearance of crystals. It is said that crystals give birth to all things through will, and the dream world of the crystal lies within the unseen realm, the spirit world of chaos. After the apocalypse happens and the universe implodes into chaos at the end of Lightning Returns Final Fantasy XIII, this crystal of dreams appears in the void, and when it shatters, it releases the souls of mankind and gives birth to the new world. With all of these references, we can move on to what is and may be Auracite in the Final Fantasy XIV verse, starting with what we know of it in-game, and from there I will ask you to bear with me, where my speculation compass may point towards. Our first contact with something bearing the label of Auracite happens during patch 2.4, when the Scions of the Seventh Dawn are seeking a way to permanently kill an Ascian soul. Charlayan Archon Monbrida introduces us to white Auracite, a crystal able to store great quantities of ether during a brief period of time. This murder tool is, from what we are told, synthetic, meaning you cannot find natural white Auracite in the world. However, even before the introduction of white Auracite, we face the Ultima weapon in the Praetorium, an elegant construct that has what seems to be natural Auracite at its core, the heart of Sabik, harboring the power of the ultimate spell, Ultima. Particularities aside, it would seem that there is a form of Auracite that, just like Magicite works in previous titles, allows the casting of certain magics stored within. It is the heart of Sabik what the 7th Legion of Garlemald under command of Legatus Valens von Barrow uses as blueprint for the weapon project, mechanical prototypes based on the Ultima weapon, each with a synthetic Auracite core with gathered data of renowned Garlean soldiers that through the Oversoul system fuse the pilot with the weapon core and override their souls with the stored data of the synthetic Auracite. This and the flaw that turned the pilot of the Ruby weapon into a physical simulacrum of Neil Van Darnus hints that the synthetic Auracite may be closer to pure Auracite than we believe, as, chronologically, we were explained before during the Return of Ivalice read series. Pure Auracite is revealed by Archon Mikoto Jinba to absorb the wielder's ether and transform it, amplifying their will or their greatest desire and giving it form before returning it to their body. The form the wielder takes is unique, no matter if they use both the same shard. Argathedelphus becomes Duma, while Bagamnan turns into Yasmat. During this questline, we learn as well that the term Lucavi does not equate evil, for Mustadia Bonanza, Agrias Oaks, and Sidolphus Orlando use Auracite to turn into Lucavi in order to protect the seal of the High Seraph, and thus those who would confront her. Much like in Final Fantasy Tactics, the legend of the Zodiac Graves exists in this world, heroes who would defeat the High Seraph and the Lucavi that serve her, each with a shard of Auracite in hand. And yet, despite being merely a tool neither good nor evil, the truth of its origins raises many questions about the very nature of it, as revealed by the continuation of said Red series, the story of the Holy Blade Save the Queen, a weapon made of Auracite and containing the ethereal imprint memories of Queen Gunildor as an icon. In one of the field records in the Bolsian questline, it is said that Auracite comes from the wings of Ultima, the High Seraph. Indeed, during our battle with her in the depths of the Necrohall of Mulonde, she first appears creating an Auracite shard in her hands. This revelation, of handled as it may seem, may well turn out to be game-changing for what it implies. If pure, not crafted nor synthetic Auracite comes from Ultima, then that implies Auracite has existed before the star was sounded by Hydaelyn's Diamond the Zodiac. In the Warrior and Triad questline, Nuclei revealed that the cause of the 13 shards flood of darkness was triggered by the Warriors of Light wielding Auracite. If Auracite could be found in a shard, then as far as we know, the only possible source of that material is the High Seraph. And if Ultima never before decided to pay the 13th a visit, then just like the ruins of Amaroth ended up in the first, Auracite appeared in the source and the shards. And if Auracite existed in the Unsundered Star, then that means Ultima had to walk, or float, that world for it to be found at all. Now we are entering the realm of speculation, but there's an undeniable connection between Ultima and the Lucavi and the Convocation of 14. Said connection being a mention in passing in Final Fantasy XII's data log entries for each of the Espers. Except for Ultima and Zodiac, only Scions of Holy and Dark, each one of the Evolution Espers, technically labeled Scions of Darkness, have an opposing Scion of Light. These only mentioned Scions of Light give their names to each seed of the Convocation bar Ultima, Eledibus, and Asem, and it is heavily implied that the names are passed down from predecessor to successor, honoring the real name of the seed's first holder. This would mean, in times past, Ancients named after the Scions of Light existed, and they were the first members of the Convocation of 14. Because they are, too, associated with the Zodiac, They may be the first original Zodiac Braves, the heroic souls that defeated and banished Ultima and the Lucavi, perhaps taking a fragment of their power to them in form of the well-known Crimson Brand, the glyph that each Ascian bears and, in truth, is but a portion of the Lucavi's complete glyphs. Even if what I speculated before turned out to be wrong, it is undeniable the ancients work with material uncannily similar to Auracite, concept matrices. The ancients store concepts, magics, and memories in crystal, and it seemed to be part of their daily lives as a medium for storage and transfer. We see them in both Academia Neither and Anamnesis Neither, and in one of the dungeon previews for Endwalker. Even more evident are the constellation crystals, each holding within the memories of the seed's holder. It is unclear if these crystals in particular were crafted by different standard, or if it was customary to pass it down from predecessor to successor as one would hand down the knowledge needed to perform a job. Speaking of which, this turns the convocation crystals into something very similar to the Warrior of Light's job crystals, allowing to immediately master the discipline through techniques and memories of previous holders, as well as inscribing our own for those who come after. And this, by virtue of being able to store both memories and magics, as the Crystal of Azan best exemplifies when Emmet Zog inscribed within not just his memories of the 14th, but its unique summoning magic, would make both the Convocation and Job crystals extremely similar to the properties of Auracite. Of course, since synthetic Auracite exists in the source, it is entirely possible that ancients found a way to replicate it through creation magics. But since Shadowbringers, the most important and notorious crystal-based construct of ancient culture, have a name, Hydaelyn and Zodiac, the first icons, as they were both created by the power of will and souls, one may wonder if these beings could be akin to Auracite, if the ancients indeed managed to weave synthetic Auracite of their own. If this were to be true, then it would not be wrong to say that Auracite lies at the core of this world, and much like in the Ivalice Alliance series, is the catalyst for every miracle and calamity that has happened in this verse.